Go.
Good morning. We are class 16 and we are making a presentation about Rick and Morty. Your project lead is Brian, and he will explain to you everything you have missed while you were laughing at car jokes.
All right, good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us on our presentation today, as we will touch the topic of the meaning of life. First, I'll have Adam discussing science, rationality, and Mises. Second, we'll have Baruch discussing resentment towards Creator. Third, I'll have Stephanie touching on the topic of Rick's purpose, and I'll be going last discussing the life of Roy. Without further ado, I'll be handing it over to Adam.
Just a quick ode to Elliott Smith.
Oh God! What is life? How could someone so talented die so young? It's hard not to despair in life, considering that we as human beings are very small compared to the earth we live on. And earth in itself is just a pebble in space in comparison to the solar system that it resides in. And the solar system is just a speck of dust in comparison to the observable universe. It's hard not to turn to nihilism. And as Friedrich Nietzsche said, God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. Now what Nietzsche meant by those words was that after the Enlightenment, science and rationality have essentially made God relevant. For example, before the Enlightenment, if you were born tall, strong, and handsome, you were simply blessed by God. But now with science and rationality, however, if you were born tall, strong, and handsome, there are many scientific factors that contribute to that, such as genetics, nutrition, and exercise. Now, in the show, we have Rick, who's highly intelligent and is seemingly godlike because he's able to manipulate the situation that he is in to his advantage, but is at the same time a belligerent drunk who is always who is more or less on the verge of suicide. Now, because he knows that the universe is indifferent to everyone, including himself. Now, in stark opposition to the absurdism that Rick represents are the Mises. Mises are born into the world with one purpose, serve that purpose, and fade away. They do not want to be born into the world. They do not want to exist at all. That's the most nihilistic thing I've ever heard of. And now, the human experience is best represented in the myth of Sisyphus, the Greek king who was sentenced by God to roll a boulder uphill only for it to fall down again and for him to repeat the process. We humans, we try and try again, we fail and try more. The closest thing to meaning, to purpose for humans is to act, doing.
Hello everyone. Who here? Oh man, that was hard. Who here has ever resent your creator? Show hand.
Say that again.
Who have you ever resent your creator or God?
Resented.
Yep.
Say it.
I want to see hand. You are going to hell anyway. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So as a person who grew up in Ethiopia, where like more than 99% of the population has a religion somehow, they have faith. So dealing with this kind of topic is one of the hardest things. So anyway, I came across it, and we're gonna discuss about how the reason behind why we resent God and the nature of freedom. So it's more of irrationality of freedom. So to demonstrate the point, so I'll try to divide each one of you. So this would be, I have 3 slides. So this would be the first slide, the second slide, and the third slide. So I will be luckily Brandon. So I want to ask you a question, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me who's the most important person in your entire life, including yourself? Who's like the most important being? So you're actually comparing yourself from within your environment. So you are also in that environment.
Okay, my mom.
So your mom is better than yourself. So
Are you saying important or significant?
significant, important, whatever it is. But
No, those different things. This is college. Pick one.
So I would say significant.
Yeah. Yes.
Your mom.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not as significant as your mom or important as your mom. So can you exist without like your existence? Is it dependent on your mom or yourself?
My. Yes.
Okay, so you're hard to convince. Okay, someone who believes that you you are the most important person in like the most important being in your entire life. Who thinks that? I think I am. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Without me, there is no existence.
There is no existence. So all our lives. So thank you for mine. So this is Elizabeth, right? So this, for most of us, whether we believe it or not, whether we like it, like whether we say like our mom, you are the most significant person. If without your existence, you cannot exist, right? This is the general truth that we tend to believe, like until a certain point in our life. So everything that is further than us would become less important. That means you are the most important person, and then maybe the second would be your mom, your dad, your family, and then maybe your neighbors next, and then maybe as the society grows, like the further the thing, the less important it gets. So this is one reality. Well, what if I told you I just made that up? That's not the truth. So this is the truth, right? Can you tell me a circumstance where a single like celebrity or just very famous person, like who died before, and then our existence actually gets in question? Like, can you make like?
Rephrase your question.
Okay, my question goes like this: can you mention a person because of their days or because we missed them, that our existence actually is in question? Like, is there anyone that we think if they died, the whole world would end? Is there anyone? So like Michael Jackson, like not Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson died, right? But pop is still there, right? The pop culture. And Barack Obama is not there, so we have another president. Anyone, like an individual would not matter as a whole. Like our existence, earlier it was the bigger picture, right? But in reality, our existence from another perspective would be like this. So we become the less important. You get the point, right? So all our lives, we are trying to match this thing. So the further the thing gets, like if we think like the universe is the big picture, right? But for us, Earth is more important than Mars. But from the universe side, Mars or maybe our galaxy becomes more important. So it's like the point is the previous slide is the exact opposite of this. So all our lives we are trying to match. This thing will become clear at a certain age of our life. So we are trying to match those things. So when we become aware of this reality, we start to get resenting God. That means we were important here, but now we're not important. So we're trying to match those. That's when it becomes, for me, that's where those things happen. So what would be the perfect? So this actually, I try to picture this thing as an equilibrium, where we see things
As a what?
This is an equilibrium. So when we reach this stage, we know our purpose, right? Like we know our purpose. Like we see things on their own places, on their own significance. So at this stage, I think things become clear, and our purpose will end here. So the basic idea is the reason that we resent God is because of those two slides that we have to match everything. But when we reach here, things become clear. And our freedom actually comes from we can exist in three realities. Either we make ourselves great, or the smaller one, or in equilibrium with our environment. So pretty much that's my slide.
So you're saying find balance.
Yeah, this is balance.
Okay.
Okay, so many people have different theories about what Rick's purpose is. Some people believe absolutely nothing, and this comes from throughout the show, he goes on all of these missions, and he's super smart, and he doesn't really have a purpose. So, like, when he's going on these missions, he's just going on them, and there is no, like, greater outcome. You don't ever see, like, oh, I'm doing all of these missions and, like, killing all of these beings for these reasons, you know? Some people believe that science, and we see this in an episode where he tells Morty, "Listen, Morty, I hate to break it to you, but when people call up, it's just a chemical reaction that compels animals to breed. It hits hard, Morty. Then it slowly fades, leaving you stranded in a failing marriage. I did it, your parents did it, you're gonna do it. Break the cycle, Morty. Focus on science." And we also see it in an episode where basically he creates a butter robot. Okay, so I'm going to show you this clip of the butter robot, and I want you to tell me what you think.
I'm busy.
Doing what?
Anything else?
What is my purpose?
You pass butter.
Oh my god.
Yeah, welcome to the club, pal.
Okay, so what do you guys, what did you guys get from that? From that small, short clip?
Call people out directly.
Okay. Andy?
Robot having existential crisis.
Louder.
The robot is having existential crisis.
What does that mean?
He doesn't know what his purpose.
He knows what his purpose is. He was just told by his creator. What does it mean?
He can't fulfill his purpose.
He can't fulfill his
He
purpose.
can't fulfill his purpose.
What does it mean? What does it mean to the robot?
He's not fulfilling a meaningful life.
Partially. What else? Somebody else.
Elizabeth?
Well, now the robot doesn't know what to do next.
Yes. One more person.
His purpose is so basic, useless, basic in the grand scheme of things.
Louder.
His purpose is so basic and useless in the grand scheme of things that it doesn't really affect anything in the universe. He's just kind of just there.
Pass butter.
Yeah. Imagine that we had the opportunity to ask our Deuce, what is our purpose?
Deus, not Deus.
Deus.
Deus is poop.
Deus. What is our purpose? What if we all had that opportunity? Would we be happy with what we are told? Would it make our life any more meaningful? So some people believe that Rick's purpose are his grandkids. This is seen in one of the scenes where he stops time to help for 6 months, I believe, to help his grandkids clean up. And during those 6 months, he's happy. You know, you can tell. And Morty points out to Rick, "You haven't said wubba lubba dub dub once." And he basically tells them, "Well, I have this new phrase. It's I love my grandkids." So that idea comes from, you know, him basically saying that he loves his grandkids, and during that clip, you see that that could possibly be his purpose. Also, he takes Morty on all of his adventures, and sometimes Summer as well, and we see that he doesn't really like to be lonely, so he enjoys their company. How can we apply this to us? So, how many of you guys are precious fruits from an unwanted or unplanned pregnancy? Because honestly, it's the same thing. Anybody?
I think they're called happy little accidents.
Okay, well, I had 2 of those, but anyway, that's a different story. Yeah, you know, like, she found out that she was basically an unwanted pregnancy.
Whom?
Summer. And she was devastated, you know, she was doubting her existence and her purpose. These are real life situations, and on a broader spectrum, because we can relate to that. Also, Rick at one point was praying to God. Why would he do that? You know, like he doesn't even believe in God, or does he? Because when he's desperate, he gets down on his knees and prays to God, and we see this.
Oh, Morty, where's your collar? I'll fix it. I dropped it. What the hell? What have you done to me, Morty? I'm okay with this. Be good, Morty. Be better than me. Oh, the other collar! I'm not okay with this! I am not okay with this! Oh, sweet Jesus, please let me live! Oh my God, I have not even fix this thing! Please, God in heaven! Please, God, oh Lord, hear our prayers! Yes! You, God! Not today, bitch! Please, God, if there's a help, please be merciful to me.
All right. I'm pretty sure we've all had those desperate moments where we pray to God, and I'm sure all of you guys, or at least me personally, like, do you give thanks to God, you know, or do you just like, oh, please God, help me, and then once once your needs are fulfilled, you don't even thank Him, you know? I mean, I don't curse at Him like Rick just did, but you know, like, do we take the time to thank Him for what He did for us? And then there's this quote here that I think we can all leave with. It says, "I know that these situations can be intimidating. You're looking around and it's all scary and different, but you know, meeting them head on, charging right into them like a bull, that's how we grow as people."
All right, now I'll be discussing the life of Roy. Now, if you'd only seen season 1 of Rick and Morty, you wouldn't have seen this part because it's a part of season 2, episode 2. So instead, I'll just give you a quick summary of what happened. So Rick and Morty are off in a different universe, and Rick exchanges his own weapons for alien currency. And Morty asks Rick, "What are we going to do with this alien currency?" And Rick came up with the idea to go to Blips and Chips, which is basically an arcade in a different universe. Walking through the arcade, Rick and Morty encounter Roy, a life well lived, which is a simulator that allows a player to enter a simulation as another person. In this case, it would be Roy. And the object of the game is to live the life of Roy and seeing how long you live in the game, approaching different situations and scenarios through their own choices. Now, Rick giving the description of the game to Morty, he starts blabbing about how inhumane, it's not right. Rick just throws a helmet on Morty, and then he's immersed into the simulation of Roy. When Morty begins the simulation, he begins right in the middle of Roy's sleep as a child. And then Roy begins explaining it as a nightmare. His mom dismisses it in the simulation. They move on. From there, he lives Roy's life exactly how we would, as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, and so on and so forth. Now there's one point where Roy gets old enough where he's running his wife's father's textile shop. And what happened in this scene is he's requested by an employee of his to pull down a roll of carpet from his inventory. So what he did was pull up a step ladder, step on it, attempted to pull the carpet, and what actually happened is he lost his balance and fell to his death, and that's where the game ended. It was game over from there. Now, when he experienced death, Morty was so immersed into the simulation that he just immediately freaked out. He couldn't tell if it was actually his real life or the simulation. After that, Rick just took the helmet from him, put it on himself, and went to work trying to beat his score, which Morty, he only got to the age of 55, and Rick attempted to beat his score in that. Now you're probably asking yourself, where am I going on with this? Let me introduce you to Nick Bostrom. He's a Swedish philosopher at the University of Oxford, and he created a theory that, think about this, that we ourselves are living within a simulation. It's crazy, right? Now, you might ask yourself, what is the purpose of this simulation? Well, behind the theory is that we're living a simulation as a historical archive. As we do right now, to refer back to history, look back at books, YouTube, old films, such as that. The people that want to refer to this historical archive would create a simulation where they could immerse themselves, just like Morty did with the life of Roy, as to taking in a first-person perspective of how we lived our life. There's also another theory that we ourselves are an actual real-life example of The Sims. Anyone familiar with The Sims? As we all know, with this, if you've ever played The Sims, you can pretty much create your own character and do whatever we do in real life, pretty much, in a computer game. Go talk to people and live our ordinary lives. So those are the two ways, either through simulation or just a real-life simulation game, is the reason why we live the simulation. You might be familiar with Elon Musk. He's a big supporter of this theory. And he said before that if there's any assumption of the rate of technology advances, eventually we'll create video games and simulations